Hello, I'm doing a book review, and the book I want to review is the comic book adaptation of Batman Returns. Now, this was written by Denny O'Neil, or Dennis O'Neil as he's credited here, but he's gone by both names. I've always called him Denny, and this was illustrated by Steve Erwin, but no relation to the Crocodile Hunter. That is a completely different Steve Erwin, and their last names are even spelt differently. And this is based on the 1992 Tim Burton film of the same name, which was a sequel to Tim Burton's 1989 film Batman, which was based on the DC Comics character created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger. Now, this comic was published in 1992, the same year that the movie came out. Now, Denny O'Neil also did comic book adaptations of the other films in the Tim Burton / Joel Schumacher Batman series, but I haven't read any of the other ones yet. This was actually sort of a random buy. I found this in a comic book store a few months ago. But Denny O'Neil is actually a pretty important Batman writer. He had a run on Batman in the 70s, which he did with Neil Adams, and while his Batman stuff was nowhere near as dark or as adult as the stuff that Frank Miller would do in the 80s, in a lot of ways, Denny O'Neil's run on Batman did kind of set the template for the stuff that Frank Miller would do later on. Like, his Batman comics were a little bit more mature and a little bit more character-driven, and he definitely tried to move Batman away from the goofy-ass shit that you had in the 50s and 60s. Now, before I talk about the comic, I do gotta give a few words on the movie that this is based on. Batman Returns is a fantastic movie, and it is very polarizing among Batman fans, and I understand why, because in a lot of ways, it is more of a Tim Burton movie that just happens to feature Batman. But to be honest, that's something I really like about the movie, because it makes the film feel very unique and different, and also the movie came out at a time when mainstream comic book movies and mainstream superhero films were very much in their infancy, so it was really cool to see sort of an experimental Batman movie so early in this character's cinematic career. And there are so many cool elements to the movie where it's a tragic love story, it's sort of a gothic horror film, and it's also a really good Christmas movie. The movie takes place around Christmas time, and you really do get a real sense of the holiday in that movie. And, of course, Catwoman and Penguin are not the characters from the comics. They're very much Tim Burton's versions of Catwoman and Penguin. And Max Shreck, who was an original villain created for the movie, played by the great Christopher Walken, was an amazing character. And obviously he's named after the actor Max Shreck, who played Count Orlok in Nosferatu. Now, for all the praise I'm giving the movie, the comic book adaptation, yeah, this is not very good. Part of the issue is, it is a relatively straightforward adaptation of the movie. The problem is, though, so much is condensed and so much is cut out that you get none of the character development and you get none of the sense of pathos or drama that the movie had. Like, it really just feels like the Cliff Notes version of the Tim Burton movie. Now, the plot of the comic, and it's the same plot as the movie, it follows this man named Oswald Cobblepot, who calls himself the Penguin, who is born with these birth defects that gave him these almost bird-like features, and he was abandoned by his parents as an infant. His parents basically tried to murder him by leaving his baby carriage in a river, but he was eventually found and taken in by the circus, and he grew up as a circus freak, and now as an adult he wants revenge on society for how he's been treated. So as an adult, he's now the leader of a gang of former circus performers turned criminals called the Red Triangle, who start terrorizing Gotham City. So, in the beginning of the story, Penguin kidnaps a corrupt businessman named Max Shreck, and he blackmails him into working with him. So, Penguin and Max Shreck manage to make it look like Penguin is some kind of a hero, and Max Shreck pulls some strings to try to get Penguin elected as mayor of Gotham City. But in the story, Max Shreck's secretary, a woman named Selina Kyle, discovers that Shreck is up to some pretty shady shit, and he ends up killing her, or attempts to kill her. It depends on your interpretation. In the movie, it seems that he actually kills her, and it seems like these cats somehow bring her to life. Like, the movie very much implied that there was something supernatural going on, whereas in the comic, it seems like she just got knocked out, and these cats sort of just woke her up. But after this, Selina becomes a criminal who calls herself Catwoman, and she ultimately is trying to get revenge on Shreck for either killing her or attempting to kill her. Again, it depends on how you want to interpret the story, whether she really did come back to life or not. But in the story, Batman tries to stop Penguin and Max Shreck, but he also starts to develop a very complex relationship with Selina Kyle. I say complex because in the movie it's complex. In the comic, it's just kind of there. Like, in the movie, you got a real sense of Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle's relationship. Granted, that could be owed more to Michael Keaton and Michelle Pfeiffer's performances rather than the writing itself, but in the film, you got a real sense that these are two broken people who are made what they are by personal trauma, and that's what brings them together, but it's also the thing that's kind of keeping them apart, and Michelle Pfeiffer in that movie really did play Catwoman / Selina Kyle as a seriously damaged individual, whereas you really don't get any of that in the comic adaptation, and when Batman says that he loves Selina Kyle, it feels so hollow, whereas in the movie it felt genuine. The comic also doesn't really have any of the horror elements that made the movie so interesting, and that's the problem with it is a straightforward adaptation of the movie, but it doesn't do justice to the film at all. Like, as an adaptation of the movie, it's alright, but as a standalone comic book, it kinda sucks. And really what this is it's a novelty thing for people who have seen the movie, but it really doesn't work as a standalone comic book. And that's kind of a problem with it because it comes off more as product rather than something that's trying to be a really good Batman comic. And Denny O'Neil has done good Batman comics, but yeah, this one, it's just, again, like, as a comic based on the movie, it's okay, but as anything standalone, it's not very good. But that was my review on the comic book adaptation of Batman Returns, and bye.